today's video, I'm going to be covering the whole entire market in terms of S&P 500, Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and then SPY for the ETF for S&P 500 and QQQ for the ETF for Nasdaq, as well as economic news, calendar, stuff like that, so on and so forth, and crude oil prices, 10-year treasury, and all that stuff. So hopefully you guys like the video. Hopefully you guys like the channel. If you do, consider subscribing so be notified when the next time I upload the video, so you could be notified. And first thing I want to start off with is Jerome Powell, Fed chair, says basically there's been a lack of further progress this year on inflation. The reason why this is important, essentially we were going into the year expecting a couple inflation interest rate cuts, but we're pretty much dwindling down to either 1 or 0, right? So I think for the most part they're going to be forced to at least cut one, since it seemed like they were going to cut a few times this year, but there's a chance they might not even cut at all. So Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the U.S. economy has not seen inflation come back to central bank's goal, which is 2%, pointing to the further unlikelihood that interest rate cuts are in the offing anytime soon. The recent data have clearly not given us greater confidence and instead indicate that it's likely to take longer than expected to achieve that confidence, he said during a central bank forum. Now, the thing is, though, I'll cover the 10-year treasury, I guess. So the 10-year treasury at the moment is 4.657%. And you would assume with that news kind of statement that interest rates are not going to lower. And again, with lower interest rates, it's easier to, for example, for companies to grow, in essence, which helps earnings, and then which kind of boosts the economy in a way, because they'll be hiring. If they could borrow money, they'll invest more in R&D, which if they invest more in R&D, they can hire more workers, so on and so forth, and it's a snowball effect, right? But given that news, the market pretty much like stayed flat, right? Like it didn't react that much for today, kind of thing. It was pretty much like a little bit low, a little bit high kind of stuff, right? But in terms of how it's going to play out tomorrow, I would assume technically it would probably play out like start going down, but looking at the graphs and analysis and everything, it's showing a different picture. The Dow Jones kind of shows like it's going to go low, but the Nasdaq and SPY, it looks like it's going to reverse the upside. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to talk about, but before I do, I'm going to go through the economic news. There's a reason why I'm stating that it could potentially go up to the upside, not just for the technicals, but additionally, there's almost nothing in the horizon in terms of real news, right? So crude oil, I'm going to cover that because energy, in terms of energy, it's always important. $84.75 per barrel. We've seen it increase, but for the most part hasn't increased for the past few days. And in terms of economic news, I'm going to go over the news that happened today later on at the end of the video, but specifically for tomorrow, Wednesday, April 17th, 2 p.m. By the way, with these forecasts, it's not just, for example, tomorrow. It kind of gives out a trajectory for like the next week or month, give or take. But I do post daily, so if you want to see the latest one, that's probably the most important. Wednesday, April 17th at 2 p.m. we had Fed Big Book. 5:30 p.m. we have Cleveland Fed President Loretta Merzer speak, and 7:15 p.m. Fed Governor Michelle Bowman speak. So I looked over the whole entire calendar in terms of what's coming up in the future. Nothing drastic personally for the next few days. Because of that, I wouldn't assume the markets to continue to keep going down if they didn't react too much for what Fed Jerome Powell stated, right? And specifically because the way the graphs look. Now, I'm going to show the Nasdaq and SPY first because those ones seem to be wanting to go to the upside. So if we look at QQQ, which is an ETF, it's just basically a condensed version of the Nasdaq in terms of ratio. So it's the exact same thing at the end of the day. Now, I thought if it were to, what does it say? Or actually, maybe let me show the SPY first, which is the ETF of the S&P 500. Now, if you look at the levels it broke through, so on and so forth, it's pretty much hovering around this level of $502, give or take. But if you look at the 1 month and 3 month, 1 month, it looks like it's in bearish movements, MACD line, wanting to go to the upside. 3 month movement as well, bearish movement, want to go upside. In the after hours at the same time, by the way, if you look at the futures, it's spiked up, right? So it's actually spiked up in the futures. MACD lines are pointing to the upside. 6 month is showing it wants to go up to the upside. So to be honest, even though I think hypothetically tomorrow should be going to the downside, given that, and I'm going to show levels too as well, given, for example, they're not going to cut interest rates, and then there's like a little bit tensions, or not a little bit, but quite a bit of tensions in the Middle East and so on and so forth, I'd assume the markets to go down, especially if you look at the 1 year and 5 year, right? So the 1 year, it's in bearish movement, right? And in the 5 year as well, just entered bearish movement. And like I stated before in the past videos, since 2010, there's this channel that we've been in for the S&P 500. So this is a SPY ETF of the S&P 500. And essentially, I think, let me go to the 1 year to show, we'd be coming down to this mid support level and then going through these moving averages, potentially bouncing off them, right? So ultimately coming down, not right away, but over time to $484, give or take. Not guarantee again. And like always, by the way, I'm not a professional, so please do own due diligence and research before buying and selling. But ultimately, because the 1 year and the 5 year is going into bearish movement, if not already in bearish movement, 1 year bearish and 5 years just entered, I assume we would go down. But if you look at the 6 months, so in terms of short term, right, because those are more for the long term, it's showing a different picture for tomorrow. So for tomorrow, it kind of looks like to the upside. Now, if we were to go upside, what levels will we hit? The first level I remember I measured, it was like $508, but I guess I'm not okay. I guess we would come back to this level that should have acted as support, but it didn't. So $508. But then the next level would be pretty much colliding with the moving average within these like cluster zone right here. So pretty much it was $512, I think. Yeah, $512. So right now we're at $503 for S&P 500, and we'd be going up to 508 or to 512, depending on how much volatility there is for the most part. The volatility index currently is at 18.39. But now if we were to go down, let me see. So the first level, it's not necessarily dramatic. It was about 497, 498. I don't think we're going to go any lower for tomorrow specifically. If we were to go lower, we would end, it would be pretty much drastic. I think maybe 2% drop. So $493. So be heading down to 493, which we could see a couple times. It was about support and resistance right about here. So 493, if you're expecting 2% drop tomorrow, I wouldn't think so unless something drastic happens in terms of like the global news kind of stuff. But in terms of the interest rate, it didn't hit that much. So because it didn't hit that much, and there's nothing really going on for this week in terms of economic news, I don't think we would drop 2% tomorrow. For the S&P 500, you could probably see the Nasdaq dropping because it's more of a tech stocks kind of stuff, and tech stocks tend to move a lot quicker. But I would assume personally we would enter this zone for the most part, which is about $497, $498. But again, with clean numbers, $500. Usually that could act as support as well. So it would take a little bit to break through the 500. Again, in my opinion, I think it would technically go down tomorrow, but futures is up and MACD line indications are showing to the upside. So there's that. So essentially heading to 508, 512. If it were to go crazy, actually, I doubt it. It would be hitting this downward trend resistance line that we've pretty much couldn't pass a couple times, and it'd be colliding with moving averages. You'd be expecting to go 516, 517, I guess, but $516. I don't see that major jump to the upside personally, but anything's possible, I guess. For the QQQ, again, which is the ETF for the Nasdaq, actually, let me just show the DowJones because it kind of contradicts the rest of them. So QQQ as well shows the same thing as the SPY, where it's showing to the upside trajectory for tomorrow. And at the same time, for the futures, it's up as well. But for the contradicting side, the DowJones is kind of strange, even though it's like 30 stocks, right? Let me see. So if we look at the 1 year, I think. So you see all these channels right here, resistance, support, so on and so forth. And it looks like it's still heading down, by the way. So it looks like for the most part, in terms of 1 month, it's about to arch down, but it has ways to go. But I think it was 3 month or something. Yeah, arch down as well. And then the 6 month, it's trying to cross over. Okay, maybe I must have looked at it earlier or something like that. But it looks like it's trying to cross up. And then with the 1 year and the 5 year as well, it's in the bearish movements. So I guess maybe it's going to go up. Not as strong as the other ones, I would say, potentially. But it looks like it's trying to bounce up for tomorrow potentially too as well. So I guess they're all sharing the same sentiment, if that makes sense. Again, the sentiment I covered in 2 videos ago, I think. The sentiment is still bullish, right? I think it's always pretty much bullish for the most part, but it has decreased its bullish sentiment a little bit from 47%, I think, to 43%, but still strong bullish sentiment. Now, in terms of the SPY, again, which is the ETF for the S&P 500, all right, no, sorry, already covered that, QQQ. So in terms of QQQ, which is the ETF for Nasdaq, if we look at the 1 year, it's bearish, and then the 5 year bearish as well. So it's in the bearish territory movement. But then if we zoom in for the 3 month, just to see like a bit better picture, we had a potential support level up here, upward trend support level, broke through it. So now, again, from yesterday's video, I stated that either it's going to break underneath and then completely go through down, or if it could hover around this price point, because the day before we were at this price point, then it could recover. And if it recovers, we're going to the upside. But that's in my opinion, right? Now, essentially, when it broke through, it kind of looked like it was staying here. So I thought maybe, in my opinion, again, tomorrow that we're going to be heading down, but I don't see any indication that's going down, because if you look at the 1 month, right, trajectory is bullish right now, movement. Plus, again, the futures are up in my, like, it seems like quite a bit, right? And then the 3 month as well, trajectory, it's in the bullish movement as well. So 1 month and 3 months is bullish movement, and then the 6 month is trying to enter into the bullish movement. So it looks like we're going to the upside. Now, if we were to go up to upside, where we're looking at, the first level was pretty much right about $434, $435. Then the next level would be pretty much $438, just because it would collide with moving average. And then at the same time, this support / resistance level zone right about here. So again, that was $435 give or take, and $438 give or take for the 37.38, and we're right now at 431. And in terms of if it were to go down, I wouldn't think that it would go down too crazy, but the first zone was about 425, and then I don't know, if it goes this low for tomorrow, I don't think anything's drastic going to happen, just because nothing happened crazy when Jerome Powell spoke today. But either way, it'd be $421 give or take. So we have 425, 421, both zones right there. And ultimately, if we were to go crazy to the upside, which it could happen for the QQQ, again, because it's more predominantly for the tech sector, again, it has to go through all the moving averages. So I doubt it's going to happen like that. But it would be hard time to pass 440. If it passes 440, it would meet this downward trend resistance line, which we couldn't pass a couple times. We had a false breakout, but if it were to go up to that level, about 444, 445, give or take. But yeah, so hopefully you guys like the video. Actually, wait, before I do, there was one thing. So to cover today's news, housing starts, the numbers were previously 155 million, expecting 148 million, and then getting 132 million this time around. Building permits was 152 million previously. 151 was 1 point, I might have messed up reading the numbers. 1.52 million for the previous, 1.51 million this time expected, and then 1.46 million this time around. And then industrial production 0.4%, previously 0.4% expected, and then 0.4% this time around. In capacity utilization, 78.2, previously 78.5 expected, and then 78.4% this time around. And again, like I stated, Jerome Powell spoke today, and it doesn't seem like interest rate cuts are going to potentially happen this year. And if it does, it'll just be one. And I think if they were to do one, it's just more that it's because the market was expecting at least a bunch of them, that they dwindled down to one, just to be like, okay, we gave you one. That's it. But yeah, hope you guys like the video. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.